So when they read stories, they feel, okay, I'm not alone. I interned here for 6 months. If you talk to some of the older leadership here, they'll be like, she refused to leave.
I think publishing is a lifestyle. It becomes part of your DNA.
It's safe to say that. Then John sitting here.
As a designer, it doesn't really threaten me, it excites me.
Hi everyone, I'm Gurmeher and author at Penguin India, and today with me I have one of the most important person in a publishing house, that is the children's publisher, Sohini Mitra. And I say the most important because as children we all know that's the gateway drug to bigger readings. And Sohini, I do want to ask you, when and how did you decide that you wanted to be a children's book editor?
So, publishing happened by choice, but children's publishing actually happened by chance. So, my foray into publishing started around 15 years back with a short stint at Rupa and Company. And there somehow, all the children's book or manuscripts would end up on my desk. And as I started working with illustrated books and stories where you also had visuals and illustrations, and so that opened up a new world to me, and I realized that was my true calling, that I wanted to work with words and pictures. And that's where it all started. And then suddenly there was this I think around a year into Rupa and Company being with them, there was an advertisement in a newspaper. I still remember, Times Ascent, and I wasn't actively looking, but it just happened that they had an opening for a commissioning editor for their children's imprint. And well, as they say, later the rest is history, and it just seemed tailor-made for me, and I've not looked back since then. So 2008 January is when I joined Puffin, the imprint that caters to children's literature, as part of the Penguin Random family, then Penguin. And I'm going to be completing 15 long years in this organization, and it's been a really rewarding and fulfilling journey so far.
When you say that role was tailor-made for me, why do you say tailor-made? What is it about this role that you think fits very well with you? And also, is there any author that has influenced this decision that came into play when
So, like I said, one is this whole marriage of text and words, right? So I felt that, working on illustrated formats, the fact that, children's books need visuals, right? It was very rewarding for me to work on those, because I used to think visually, right? So when I used to read children's books, even earlier, as I do now, like all of us, we imagine things, like you imagine a character that Heidi would look like this, or Alice would look like this, right? And I'm not talking of a time where, films and movies are made, and then of course it's a different thing altogether. But the first time you read a book, you have the vision of the setting in front of you, and you're imagining the story. And therefore, I felt that, I was adding, there was some kind of a value add to that, because I could do the briefing of the, the story, that, okay, this is the best scene to illustrate. And I used to enjoy doing that, like thinking about the cover, just not the editorial aspect. Of course, there's there. Because there is also the voice, there is also the narrative voice, the plot, the character, everything comes together. And I feel like children's publishing or editing a children's book is really a skill set by itself. It's not easy, because you have to know how much to edit without really getting into the author's voice. I mean, that has to stay original. So the right balance, or there's no formula, right? So it is really a skill set to know how much to edit, or this is appropriate for this age group, because we'd be working across like 0 to 16, which is like a huge spectrum of readers. So each book, how is it suited for a different audience, to make or create a product or a book which is suitable for a 0 to 3 reader who's just beginning their journey, or a fairly emerging reader, like the 6 to 8 segment, or 8 to 10, they are fairly independent readers. So visualizing all of that, planning for it, editing, and then creating an entire package, I think that is also a skill set like anything else. And I felt like, that is what gave me the high.
Yeah.
When I start thinking about these books for different segments of the audience.
Yeah.
And therefore, and a lot of Indian authors also influenced my writing, because of course we all grew up reading Ruskin Bond,
Yeah.
right? Who also used to be one of my favorite authors, right? I read Room on the Roof years back, and little did I know that one day I would be his editor at Penguin, and it's just been so wonderful working, with his book, and we created the 60th anniversary special edition of Room on the Roof. So it's been really fulfilling.
I feel like you've answered so many questions that I had, but I do want to go back to this one very specific thing you said, where you talk about, it is on you to decide what age group reads what content. I use the word content, but what literature. And I think that is that in a way is a very big responsibility, because these are also the ages where you shape the minds of a reader.
Totally.
And I do want to ask, how do you make that decision in terms of, and I know a lot of the sort of young adult book that I read often deal with terminal illness, often also deal with parental trauma or loss. So how do you make those decisions in terms of when you're commissioning, and also in terms of editing? What do you edit out? What do you keep for essence?
So it's fairly, I won't say it's fairly simple, but it's also what you observe, right? Like these are all kids around you, in your own families, and of course around in your neighborhood. So you're following trends. You know that tastes are also changing over a period of time. They're evolving. A lot of it is also international books. You see international books, and then immediately, there's a demand for those. So you know what the audience wants, right? Having said that, we are committed to publishing homegrown content. So what we wish to do, or are committed to doing, is giving them a sort of understanding and vocabulary within their own milieu, right, where they're growing up. So the lived reality is of a child growing up in India. Therefore, our stories, the setting is Indian. The characters, the protagonists are all Indians, and it's like, it could be you, it could be anybody you know.
Yeah.
So essentially, a lot of it is rooted in your own lived experience. A lot of it is also rooted in what you would like to see. So we want representation of all kinds of kids in the stories we publish. And it kind of stems from that, you talk about the issues that are grappling the world today. So mental illness is not just a preserve of, sorry for using this word, but it's not just for adults or young adults. I mean, that there are cases of, and maybe kids don't realize it, but it's starting as early as tweens and even younger. So we want to give them a vocabulary to understand that, or to be able to express that. So when they read stories, they feel, okay, I'm not alone. So and difficult conversations become easy through books, through stories, and that's what we aim to do.
So I do also want to ask you that what changes do you hope to bring in the lives of children or parents through the books that you're publishing?
I think books give them the perspective, about life, about the world, and we want to be able to give them stories, and that opens up conversations about the multicultural world that we live in, right? And there's just, it's so polarized today, everything is, and I think books are the only things that will shape up their perspective, mindsets about the world. So when we do a book on non-mainstream topics, which are not covered in their day-to-day, maybe dining table conversations or in schools. So at least, this is a little hope that it will open up their mind about different people's lived realities. And therefore, make them more inclusive, kinder citizens.
No, that's so true. I think something that you have been doing very much, and you've been expanding the conversation on, especially through children's books on caste, gender, disability. I do want to know, what has your perspective been while commissioning these books?
One is, of course, again, what I said earlier about opening up conversations about them and giving them an exposure to different lived experiences, which is like, just for them to know that the way they live, the people they know, or their little universe is not limited to that little universe. So it kind of broadens their horizon. One is that. The other is we do want to publish at some point. It's something that I'm very passionate about. Own voice stories. So if it is LGBTQ, we do want own voice stories coming in. If it is Dalit literature, the fact that we don't have a lot on our list is not for the lack of trying, right? But we do want an authentic story, coming in from somebody again who has lived that experience. So we are looking into it, but we won't rush it just because we're not ticking boxes, right? Just because it has to be done. We do it when we find the right voice and the right content to do it.
No, but thank you so much. It's been an illuminating conversation, especially for me as a writer, especially for me as a young adult reader. But thank you so much, Sohaili, for this wonderful conversation, all the insights.
Thank you so much.